April 7th, 1945, at 2:23 in the afternoon. The Imperial Japanese Navy's super battleship Yamato explodes with such violence that her 18.1-inch main turrets are blown 1,000 feet into the air, killing 3,055 sailors in the single largest naval explosion of World War II. What Imperial Navy records never disclosed was that the Yamato was not just conducting a suicide attack on Allied invasion forces. She was carrying Japan's entire strategic plutonium reserve, 640 kilograms of weapons-grade material destined for the final atomic weapon project that could have changed the war's outcome. For 40 years, naval historians believed Operation Tengo was a desperate gesture of honor, a symbolic final charge by Japan's most powerful warship. The wreck, discovered in 1985, tells a radically different story. Evidence scattered across a 2-mile debris field proves the explosion came from within the ship's armored citadel, not from American bombs or torpedoes. Recently declassified Manhattan Project documents reveal American intelligence knew exactly what cargo made the Yamato's destruction absolutely essential. What atomic secret was worth sacrificing Japan's most powerful warship? And why did both sides agree to bury the truth beneath 1,120 feet of Pacific water? The answer lies in Operation Katsugo. Japan's final attempt to develop nuclear weapons before surrender became inevitable. The Yamato's forward magazines contained 640 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium, processed at secret facilities in Hungnam, North Korea, and destined for a new atomic weapons laboratory in Harbin, Manchuria. This was not theoretical research. This was enough fissile material for at least 12 atomic bombs, potentially changing the Pacific War's outcome in Japan's favor. American codebreakers intercepted Japanese communications about the plutonium shipment on March 15, 1945, making the Yamato's destruction a Manhattan Project priority, not just a naval objective. Both sides agreed to bury the truth for opposite reasons. America could not admit they nearly lost the atomic race, and Japan could not reveal they came within weeks of nuclear capability. What few outside intelligence circles understood was that the Japanese atomic program had been making rapid progress since 1942. Under the codename Project F-Go, Japanese scientists led by Yoshio Nishina had successfully achieved uranium enrichment at levels comparable to early American efforts. The crucial missing element was delivery. Japan's secret weapon needed its most powerful naval vessel as transportation. Naval records recovered from Imperial archives in 1995 revealed that the Yamato's final mission was designated with the highest priority by the Japanese War Council, a classification normally reserved for operations with direct Imperial involvement. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, who commanded the operation, was one of only 7 officers briefed on the plutonium transport mission. The other commanders aboard believed they were conducting a conventional suicide attack against American landing forces at Okinawa. The real operation called for the Yamato to break through the American blockade around Okinawa under the pretense of a conventional attack, then divert to a rendezvous with Japanese transport submarines off the Chinese coast. The plutonium would then be transferred to the submarines and transported to Manchuria, where Japanese scientists had established underground laboratories beyond the reach of American bombing. If successful, Imperial Japan would have possessed atomic weapons by August 1945, potentially before the United States could deploy their own bombs against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan's atomic ambitions began years earlier than most historians acknowledge. In 1940, Japanese physicist Yoshio Nishina met German nuclear scientist Werner Heisenberg at a scientific conference in Berlin. What appeared to be an academic exchange was actually the foundation of an Axis nuclear partnership. By 1942, Japanese scientists had established a robust atomic research program, operating under Army oversight in occupied territories. The Hungnam facility in northern Korea became the epicenter of Japanese plutonium production. Built under the cover of a conventional explosives factory, the site utilized heavy water technology, adapted from German designs. Korean laborers, working in horrific conditions, never understood they were part of an atomic weapons program, and most died from radiation exposure without knowing why. By mid-1944, the strategic situation in the Pacific had deteriorated significantly for Japan. American B-29 Superfortress bombers were systematically destroying Japan's industrial capacity. Intelligence reports from Japanese spies in the United States indicated the Manhattan Project was nearing completion. Imperial High Command recognized they were in a nuclear race they were rapidly losing. In January 1945, after the fall of the Philippines cut Japan's resource supply lines to Southeast Asia, Emperor Hirohito personally approved an emergency relocation of all atomic materials. The decision to consolidate Japan's nuclear resources was a desperate gamble. They would either concentrate everything in one secure location or risk losing their atomic capability piecemeal. Naval Captain Toshikazu Ome, one of the few surviving officers with knowledge of the operation, revealed in a 1987 interview that the plutonium had been transported from Hungnam to Kure Naval Base under extraordinary security. The containers were lead-lined and required 16 men to carry each one, Omei recalled. He said they were told the containers held special radar equipment, and the security was unlike anything he had seen before. Armed guards accompanied each container, with orders to shoot anyone who approached without authorization. The American intelligence breakthrough came on March 15, 1945, when codebreakers at Station Hai-Pio in Hawaii intercepted a message from the Japanese Naval Ministry to Vice Admiral Ito. Though partially encrypted, the message contained a phrase that triggered immediate alerts. It included the words "special physics materials," followed by critical security priority. This terminology matched the language Manhattan Project officials used to describe weapons-grade nuclear material. Admiral Chester Nimitz was informed of the intercept within hours. By March 17, 1945, the directive had reached the highest levels of the American chain of command. The Yamato must be destroyed completely, with no possibility of mission success or material recovery. Dawn broke clear over the East China Sea on April 7, 1945. The Yamato, accompanied by the light cruiser Yahagi and 8 destroyers, steamed south at 22 knots. In her armored citadel, secured behind 16-inch steel bulkheads, sat Japan's nuclear future, 640 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium in specialized containment vessels. At 12:32 p.m., American reconnaissance aircraft spotted the Japanese task force. Lieutenant Commander James Garrick radioed back to the carriers of Task Force 58, reporting that an enemy battle force had been sighted: 1 battleship, 1 cruiser, 8 destroyers, course 220, speed 20. The message that followed came directly from Admiral Raymond Spruance's flagship, ordering the pilots to destroy the primary target at all costs. Complete destruction mandatory. This unusually explicit order raised eyebrows among squadron leaders who were accustomed to more tactical flexibility. By 1:30 p.m., American carrier aircraft began launching in waves. 388 aircraft in total, the largest single aircraft strike against a naval target in history. Among the pilots, rumors had spread that the Yamato carried some special weapon or technology that could not fall into Japanese hands in Okinawa. Squadron leader Lieutenant Commander Hugh Winters later recounted that they were briefed the Yamato had to go down in deep water. No beaching, no survivors. The emphasis was unlike any mission he had flown. This was not just about sinking a ship. This was about making sure something aboard that ship never reached its destination. The first wave struck at 2:12 p.m., focusing on the escorting destroyers to isolate the Yamato. The battleship's massive 18.1-inch guns, the largest ever mounted on a warship, fired their distinctive Sanshiki anti-aircraft shells, creating explosive umbrellas in the sky. But American pilots had been briefed on one critical weakness: the Yamato's underwater protection. At 2:20 p.m., the coordinated torpedo attack began. 12 torpedoes struck the Yamato in rapid succession, concentrating on her port side. Damage control teams fought desperately to contain the flooding, but something catastrophic was happening in the forward magazine section. Survivors later reported that Vice Admiral Ito gave a strange order as water reached the armored citadel to activate Protocol F. What happened next defied conventional naval warfare expectations. Rather than allowing the plutonium to be captured, Japanese officers had rigged the storage compartments with demolition charges, a fail-safe meant to prevent the atomic material from falling into enemy hands. The emergency destruction protocol was essentially a controlled nuclear contamination event. At precisely 2:23 p.m., the Yamato erupted from within. The explosion was so massive, it created a mushroom cloud visible from 100 miles away. The ship split in half, with the forward section disintegrating entirely. The main 18.1-inch gun turrets, weighing over 2,500 tons each, were hurled into the air like toys. American pilots circling overhead described the explosion as beyond anything they had seen from conventional weapons. The blast wave damaged aircraft flying at 1,500 feet. The Yamato's destruction was so complete that debris was later found scattered across a 2-mile radius of seabed, an explosion pattern inconsistent with conventional magazine detonations. Of the 3,332 men aboard, only 276 survived. None came from the sections of the ship where the plutonium had been stored. Within hours of the Yamato's sinking, an unprecedented classification order came from Washington. All communications regarding the operation were designated ultra secret, a classification level above top secret. Participants were ordered never to discuss specific details of the mission beyond conventional combat reports. The official narrative became simple. American air power had demonstrated its supremacy over even the most powerful surface combatant. The story served American strategic interests perfectly. It highlighted the obsolescence of battleships and reinforced the ascendance of carrier warfare. For Japan, the incentives to maintain secrecy were even stronger. Acknowledging their nuclear program would have devastating consequences. Emperor Hirohito's surrender speech carefully omitted any reference to atomic weapons development, focusing instead on the American atomic attacks as an unprecedented threat that justified Japan's capitulation. The families of those lost aboard the Yamato received standard death notifications, and they never learned that their sons had died protecting Japan's nuclear future. The Japanese government provided a narrative of heroic sacrifice in a conventional battle, technically true, but fundamentally incomplete. American occupation authorities took extraordinary steps to eliminate evidence of Japan's nuclear program. Within weeks of the surrender, specialized teams from the Manhattan Project arrived in Japan with orders to locate and secure any remaining nuclear materials or research. The Hungnam facility was dismantled piece by piece, with key components shipped back to the United States for analysis. Dr. Robert Furman, head of the Manhattan Project Intelligence Section, wrote in a classified memo dated October 1945 that the Japanese program was more advanced than initial estimates suggested. He wrote that if the Hungnam material had reached its destination, he estimated Japan could have produced a functioning device within 3 to 4 months. This assessment had profound implications. It meant that when President Truman authorized the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he did so not just to end the war quickly, but to ensure American nuclear monopoly remained intact. Had Japan demonstrated nuclear capability, the post-war world order would have developed very differently. For both nations, the strategic imperatives were clear. America needed to maintain its narrative of nuclear supremacy to strengthen its post-war position. Japan needed to downplay its technological capabilities to avoid harsher occupation terms. The shared conspiracy of silence served both former enemies well as the Cold War began. The truth remained submerged until August 1985, when the Japanese research vessel Takuyo located the Yamato's wreck 290 kilometers southwest of Kyushu at a depth of 1,120 feet. What should have been a straightforward archaeological discovery quickly became something far more troubling. Initial remotely operated vehicle surveys revealed anomalies that confused maritime archaeologists. The forward section of the ship showed evidence of an explosion that propagated outward, not inward as would be expected from torpedo strikes. More disturbing were the radiation readings from sediment samples collected near the wreckage, significantly higher than background levels and containing isotope signatures consistent with weapons-grade plutonium. Dr. Hiroshi Tamura, lead scientist of the Yamato exploration team, was summoned to a closed-door meeting with government officials within days of publishing his preliminary findings. Tamura later revealed in 2001 that they asked him to omit the radiation data from his official report. When he refused, they classified his entire report under national security provisions. The Japanese government's reaction only fueled speculation. Independent researchers began connecting historical dots that had previously seemed unrelated. The Hungnam facility's true purpose became the subject of intense historical investigation. Former Korean laborers who survived came forward with accounts of mysterious illnesses consistent with radiation exposure. The breakthrough came in 1995 with the declassification of Manhattan Project intelligence files under the 50-year rule. Among those files were detailed reports of the Japanese nuclear program. including specific mention of the Yamato operation. General Leslie Groves, director of the Manhattan Project, wrote in April 1945 that the interception of Japanese fissile material transport must be given highest priority, and that under no circumstances could this material be permitted to reach Japanese homeland or continental facilities. Metallurgical analysis of hull fragments recovered from the Yamato revealed microscopic evidence of plutonium contamination embedded in the steel. The unique isotope ratios matched those from Japanese nuclear research facilities, confirming beyond doubt that the ship had been carrying weapons-grade nuclear material when it exploded. Naval historian Dr. James Delgado conducted the most comprehensive analysis of the wreck site in 2005, and he concluded that the evidence is unequivocal. The Yamato's destruction was not just a naval battle, it was a successful nuclear counterproliferation operation. The scale of the explosion and the distribution of wreckage can only be explained by involvement of nuclear material. The historical implications were staggering. Operation Tengo was not a symbolic last stand, it was a desperate attempt to salvage Japan's nuclear ambitions. The American response was not routine naval warfare, it was a targeted strike to prevent nuclear proliferation. The Yamato revelation fundamentally changes our understanding of World War II's final phase. It reveals that the Pacific War's conclusion was not just a conventional conflict with an atomic epilogue. It was a race for nuclear supremacy that both sides recognized would determine post-war power structures. The decision by the United States to use atomic weapons against Japan takes on additional context when we understand that American leadership believed Japan was merely weeks away from developing its own nuclear capability. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings were not just about ending the war quickly. They were about establishing unambiguous nuclear supremacy before Japan could reveal its progress. For Japan, the Yamato operation represented a strategic gamble of extraordinary proportion, committing their largest remaining warship and their entire plutonium stockpile to one mission, demonstrated the Imperial High Command's understanding that conventional victory was impossible. Their only hope lay in achieving nuclear parity that might force a negotiated peace. The 3,055 sailors who died aboard the Yamato deserve historical recognition for what they truly were, casualties in the first naval battle of the atomic age. They died not just in conventional combat, but in a classified operation to transport nuclear materials that could have fundamentally altered world history. Modern naval operations involving nuclear materials now incorporate lessons learned from the Yamato incident. The concentration of nuclear materials on single platforms is avoided wherever possible. Transport operations utilize deception, multiple decoy shipments, and extensive electronic countermeasures, innovations that emerge from studying how the Yamato mission failed. Perhaps most significantly, the Yamato story reveals how close we came to a very different ending to World War II. Had the plutonium reached Manchuria, the atomic attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki might have been answered in kind. The Cold War might have begun with multiple nuclear powers, fundamentally altering the strategic balance that shaped the latter half of the 20th century. As we reflect on this hidden chapter of naval history, we must recognize that the greatest naval battle of World War II was not fought for territory or conventional military advantage. It was fought to determine which nation would emerge with exclusive control of history's most destructive technology. The Yamato's crew died protecting Japan's atomic future, while American forces died preventing nuclear war from extending beyond 1945. Their sacrifice preserved American atomic supremacy, and it ended World War II before nuclear weapons could proliferate globally. The most devastating naval explosion in history was really the destruction of Japan's Manhattan Project, hidden beneath the waves for 40 years. Subscribe to Ocean Attacks for more investigations into the hidden nuclear race that shaped naval warfare. What other legendary naval battles concealed atomic secrets beneath conventional military objectives?